What is a literature review? By Mark James Maloney. Academics talk about the literature, and most people only know about literature through people talking about old or classic novels. In the academic world, the literature is all the research that has taken place on a particular topic that has been published in academic journals. As academic journals are reviewed by experts in those fields, the information is considered to have high integrity and to be trustworthy. This means that creating a literature review will demonstrate that a writer is basing their research on trusted sources. Standing on the shoulders of giants is a metaphor which means using the understanding gained by major thinkers who have gone before in order to make intellectual progress. Obviously, if you're standing on the shoulders of giants, you're able to see further, and this means that science will continue to benefit from the prior researchers. So what is a literature review? A literature review shows the reader where you found the academic information to develop your own research. It gives background on what previous researchers discovered about a topic and whether they agreed or disagreed on the topic. Researchers agree or disagree with each other based on their findings, but they are not having an argument to fight with each other. Rather, they are trying to show the reader that there were different outcomes of different studies, which could depend on the variables they used or the method of gathering data. The purpose of a literature review. A literature review allows us to understand what the current researchers in a particular field are talking about in a shortened format to include only the most useful material. It means that the reader can understand what the statements made are based on previously conducted research and are not just made up or guessed. A literature review takes us from the background of the research or the more global picture and then focuses on a more specific area of the research and generally does not include non-academic sources. It serves as a method of understanding the underlying themes and ideas that researchers are interested in and whether there is agreement on the findings among researchers. It also helps to identify what areas have not been studied, which presents future researchers with opportunities. The introduction contains background information and may cite trusted news sources or experts and institutions to establish a context. It also tells the reader the information they need to understand what follows. The literature review discusses the major perspectives on a particular academic issue. It explains to the reader the different studies that have been conducted and their outcomes. The literature review also elaborates on similarities and differences between studies and what consensus or agreement there is on the topic. A literature review will typically be divided into subsections to discuss different aspects of the previous research. This feeds into the problem statement. This subsection of the literature review identifies a new issue to be researched. Through reading the background research, the writer will have identified gaps in the literature that the writer can then fill. Through identifying these gaps in the literature and knowing about the major themes in research, a writer can then establish new hypotheses to be tested. This leads to the methodology, which describes how, when, and with what methods the researcher conducted the research. This is an example of a literature review paragraph. In this paragraph, in yellow, we can see a brief introduction. In light blue, we can see that the introduction gives way to a narrower topic statement. In red, we can see that this paragraph is heavy on citations. Throughout the paragraph, it is factual and direct. In the crimson, we can see that multiple sources have been used to back up contemporary data. Finally, we can see in the dark blue and the green the direct and indirect citations. The structure of a literature review starts with an introduction and follows with the background. Next, we have narrower categories of research, followed by categories of studies that are closest to your research. This leads to a hypothesis statement.